Hello, today I want to show how we can run .NET on the local machine and connect to opencore, and then I want to demonstrate how we can publish that as a package to opencore and run it inside a cloud agent. So I'm going to start by creating an empty folder and then opening that in VS Code. Inside VS Code we can then install the openap extension. This extension will allow us to manage multiple different connections to opencore, either using different credentials or different opencores entirely, to make it easy to quickly test your code, with different credentials or towards different installations. So once it's installed, we could initialize a project, except we will get an error telling us that we don't have a configuration. We need to add an opencore first. So I'm gonna select, so you open the palette with F1 and just search for openap and you will find add openap instance. So I'm gonna select the default protocol. I'm gonna connect to our opencore in the cloud. And then I'm just gonna press enter. Do not type a username and password here. We wanna use a token. So you just press enter. And now you can sign in with the user associated with this opencore that you want to test your code with. So once I do that, I now have a connection to this opencore with that user. And now I can initialize a new project. So I select that and I select .NET. And right now there's not a lot of different examples, but hopefully when you are watching this, there will be more examples, but for now we only have like 1 or 2 examples for every different programming language. So in this case, I'm going to select the template for processing work items. When I do that, this will clone an example repository for that specific programming language, and it will add a .env file with my token and the URL that is needed to work with this. It will also create by default, the repository have a launch file that uses that .env file to know where to connect to and who to sign in as. So in this example, we have a simple, relatively simple project. We basically create a client and we hook into the event, the client events. And when we are signed in, we call this function. The reason we do this is that if it loses connection, we need to re-register after the client has reconnected. It will automatically reconnect, but we need, there's things we need to set up every time we connect. The thing we want to set up is that we call register queue. This basically makes this client a consumer of a message queue. And the reason we do that is that every time you create a work item queue, we also get a message queue with that name. And whenever there are messages that needs to be processed, opencore will, at specific intervals, send a message saying, hey, there's items that needs to be processed, please do something about it. So when we get an empty message, we can basically say, okay, we know there's something that needs to be done. So we pop that item and we start processing it. Processing basically means, in this case, that we grab a copy of the environment, we pop the item, we call the processing function that actually handles the thing, and then we properly clean up, or if there's an error, we catch it, update the item with that information, and do that. So basically all you have to do now is replace this code with the code that you want to run for every single work item. In this case, all we really do is that we change the name to Hello Kitty. So let's try that. So let's go into opencore and create a work item queue. So I'm gonna create a queue called YouTube queue. So if you're following along, call it something else. This name is now taken. And I'm gonna click save. So I can either update my .env file with the information, or I can basically just put it in as the default queue. I recommend you use the env file, but for demo purposes, I'm just gonna use this instead. So basically what happens now is that when I press F5, it will now compile the project, install the NuGet packages if that is needed, and it will run the code. And as you can see, it connected, it logged me in as YouTube, and it is now consuming the queue called YouTube queue. So if I go to work items and click add, and I select YouTube queue, I click save, we should now within a couple of seconds see that I get notified, it processed the item, and the name is now changed to Hello Kitty, and it is successful. So it worked. This is all good and handy, but we also, let's, like, when all of this is working and you're ready to, you know, put into production, you can stop running locally. Then we can again search for openiap or opencore, and we have a command called pack and publish. This will use the connection and the token to publish this as a package into opencore. Before we do that, make sure that the name matches what you want. In this case, this is YouTube. Let's call it a YouTube demo package. So package.json is the thing that tells opencore how to process this and what it is. In this case, we're telling it this is .NET, and this is the project that we want it to run. So now if I go and say pack and publish, it will upload this package into opencore with the source code. And if I go to agents and packages, here is my new package. So that means that I can now create an agent. Yeah, let's leave that as default. So normally you can just use the agent. But in this case, because it's .NET, and .NET is always a little bit special, we're going to select the .NET agent instead. I'm going to click save. And we now have a Docker instance running, in this case in a Kubernetes cluster, with the .NET agent. So I can now go to that agent and say I would like to run a package, and click run. And because this is a free version, it doesn't have as much compute power, so it will take a little bit longer to install the packages. The NuGet package. Come on. There we go. So now this is listening on YouTube queue. So now if I open a new tab, and how can I do that easily? Let's do it like this. I think, oh my God, there we go. So now if I add a new work item to the queue, within 10 seconds, we should now see that this picks up that message, or work item queue, work item, and it will then process that work item. So this is how we can very, very easily now run code. Well, it can run remotely on an agent or an assistant, or it can run in the cloud, as we did in this example, with whatever code that you want to run for every single work item. I hope this was helpful, and good luck with testing this.